And we have ourselves a game. Again. Now, we are trying a different server, so this may or may not work. We are forcing the players to play in Germany. We have hawk485 and camdoogen. They have switched mechs. Hawk was the Helix, but then again, their opponents have switched mechs as well. Elf staying with the Osprey, but happydeath saying Bomber overrated. Let's try Warthog. Camdoogen and Elf both going with that Void Osprey, but Hawk and happydeath both changing. So we'll see how Striker versus Warthog pans out on a map where there's literally no maneuverability or anything. And we are on the map Dust in the Airmech Carry Me number 5. hawk485 attempting to carry camdoogen. Unfortunately, his opponent is just really damn good. elf28 being actually the lowest ranked player in this tournament. But playing Osprey, all you have to do to be an effective player is hold right click. So then again, happydeath doesn't have too much work to do here. happydeath is playing as the Warthog. Warthog being renowned for having just a big-ass gun. Now happydeath feeling a little friendly. Has rainbows and hearts pumping out of his ass as he does lay down death with his huge chain gun. That's really fitting. It's really fitting. That's pretty much his personality in a nutshell. That's his namesake in a nutshell. camdoogen, meanwhile, is going to neutralize this top outpost. happydeath is going to whip out those hearts and try to massage those creeps that are trying to go in. Just giving them a good high five, and actually the creeps were a little fragile for that. So they end up dying in their attempt to celebrate their taking that post. So Elf is going to move in with some creeps of his own. However, Red's already in there, so that is actually Red's not responding to that. So Elf is going to be able to neutralize that base. camdoogen trying to keep his tanks alive, but Carbon has such a good concave here. happydeath with really good air-to-air damage, going to be able to keep the red mechs from doing a lot of micro-control here. And with all the Carbon tanks piled together, all of that firepower focused into one beam of tank shell, you're going to have a lot more trouble, especially when red team has their tanks facing the incorrect direction. They do have turrets, though, so they are still able to shoot. They just don't shoot well. Meanwhile, a couple jackals go to the fort and just ping that down for a while, forcing camdoogen to relocate some of his units in a way that he does not want to, and they're going to take some unnecessary damage, get some unnecessary distraction. Hawk, seeing the ping, not knowing that's been dealt with and not being communicated, is going to go back, waste some time, and meanwhile camdoogen does go down, so little distractions like that start to add up and give you the advantage. happydeath also placing a couple generators down on the bottom. Now, generators do have limited energy. That first one did run out, so he's topping it back up. And you'll see the generator slowly fills when it's on socket. The other generator is almost empty as well. What those generators do is every time you fly on or near them, they'll just send out a little beam, and they will slowly heal you and replenish your energy. So that is one of the things that makes happydeath so hard to kill, is that he is replenishing so much of his energy and health. And so he's got the generator in cargo, and he's healing while he's taking these guys on. And that's giving him a massive edge in these fights. Taking down camdoogen with, by all rights, happydeath should be dead, but because he dropped that generator, was able to basically get 2 lives in that flight. And they did not know he laid down that generator because he had it in his cargo the whole time. That's a cool play. Kudos to happydeath for coming up with that. Now, he may or may not get out of here. Does have that Q heal, but Striker is pretty insistent. Not a whole lot of energy left, and Hawk does take happydeath down. camdoogen losing track of what he's doing, or potentially disconnecting. But camdoogen does go down to Elf's focus fire. Now, Red does have artillery, Carbon team does not. Artillery with that splash damage should be able to take out these tanks given enough time, but there are generators, there is an Osprey. It's going to be difficult to unseat this Carbon team lead, especially with the bear trap still taking down all the creeps as well. So now you have a big clump of units. They have they're facing the flank, so if red team were a little bit more industrious about locating their units and didn't get killed by happydeath, but that air-to-air focus fire from the Warthog, happydeath completely ignoring the units and just aiming straight for the mechs, actually getting really good damage going on there. happydeath also not getting taken out, even though there's an abundance of anti-air here from the red team, just because one, Warthog's that tough, and two, dropping a generator every time he flies over. That's keeping him healed up, that's keeping him topped off. Now that that generator's empty, he's going to drop that one on a socket and pick up a different one. Elf, meanwhile, making sure those units don't die. Camdoogen has drained that northern outpost entirely, so camdoogen is going to be having a little bit of difficulty staying alive with that focus fire because there's just not enough juice in that post. What red team needs is a generator socketed on the outpost. Not only do the generators charge themselves when they're on the outpost, they increase the overall energy capacity and regen rate for that outpost. So Carbon recognizing that Happy Death has been a little bit too strong here and just laying down, red team's laying down all these flackers to try and fight the mech, but that leaves them vulnerable on the ground, so Elf moving in with these tanks is actually going to be able to get a lot of work done. And red team is finding themselves outmaneuvered again with the Carbon pincer move, moving over and getting a good angle on all those tanks, and the predominant composition is actually anti-air. So Carbon's going to move in on the bridge, Carbon's moving in on the bottom, even out the lines a little bit, Carbon's moving in on the top. They are literally attacking everywhere. That is going to prevent red from really setting up a line to keep this from happening. And so they did relocate most of their forces down, but in doing so, they've neglected the top. The micromanagement from Happy Death is quite impressive. The multitasking is pretty impressive as far as being able to push simultaneously on 3 different fronts. Now, it is a pretty narrow map. That does make it a little more accessible, but Warthog definitely notorious for being the least maneuverable mech of all of them, and still managing to get a lot of work done. A lot of microcontrol, keeping stray tanks alive. That's the sort of thing that red team is finding themselves just not quite able to do as well. That is what makes the difference, is that babysitting and every unit stays alive. So Carbon moving in again. Now that that base is neutral, red team will not be able to heal. Happy Death putting down just a couple more bear traps to foil the recapture attempt. No generator here, but still has just enough damage. Now the level advantage alone should be keeping him alive. Uses his ultimate ability, giving him extra armor as well. So Happy Death just not going down. Going to plant some more tanks up. Really needs to be able to flank this position. Red team actually seeing the tanks on the low ground and decide to give that outpost up and reposition everything they can. But hopefully they're going to be able to pull these as well. Camdoogen trying to get a couple of those tanks out, but Happy Death may be able to snipe those. Every tank is worth a lot here. Camdoogen not picking up that last tank just yet. He's probably going to get taken down. Overstaying his welcome. That fly back rather than going straight to the post is what made the difference there. Red team also going predominantly with Gemini. Gemini not a bad tank, but also not very good versus other tanks. And what we see is Carbon has other tanks. They've got Busters as well as Gemini and some Longhorn mixed in. So Carbon with the superior numbers and the superior firepower, probably going to be able to wrestle this one away again, even though we're on red team's map choice. So tragic, but and again, it is Happy Death. He's pretty damn good at this game. But Carbon over pushing, not putting on the halt, running right into red team's strength. Red team is actually going to do a lot of damage here. Hawk, not with a lot of confidence in Camdoogen's healing ability, starts leapfrogging the tanks back, but in doing so actually prevents them from shooting at the main lines of the Carbon team. So actually Red almost had a full wipe on that, but now most of the red teams aren't in range anymore. Tesla Tower does get taken down due to the lack of support. Hawk is actually still trying to microcontrol, still trying to keep his units in a safe place. Camdoogen trying to move forward. A little bit of disagreement there. Camdoogen getting taken down by the air-to-air focus fire from the Warthog as well. And Happy Death is just going to keep shooting the air. He's not even caring about the units. All he's doing is air-to-air spam, because if he can keep red from repositioning their units, then the improved production and unit capacity of the Carbon team will be able to smother that down. The Carbon team is going to start rolling in, putting gangsters into the mix, which is just kind of, nah. You could have won without gangsters, you know. You didn't have to use the broken unit. So, just sweeping right in. You've got Goliaths as well. All the heavy units. Happy Death finally landing and doing some ground-to-ground fire, and the DPS is real. Camdoogen trying to heal, but the Osprey just unable to keep up with that kind of damage. overshield going down from Elf as well. And we have ourselves a pretty hard-fought victory. But that is going to be GG. There is no way that Red can come back from that kind of sweeping casualty. So I'd say the deciding factor in that was the multitasking. happydeath being able to branch in 3 different directions, across the bridge, across the chasm on the south, and across the chasm on the north, never overextending, making sure that all of his units were within range when anything got hurt, babysitting those, pulling those back. The control of the units was just absolutely impeccable. So that's going to be 3 straight wins for happydeath and Elf. happydeath successfully carrying Elf to the victory in the semifinals, and unfortunately Hawk and camdoogen are going to get knocked out. But I will still give them a shitload of diamonds because I like them and because it's semifinals, man. I mean, why not? So we'll definitely be doing that. Now then,